But again, thank you for having me. It's an honour to be here and to talk to business people, pastors, leaders about what happens. But I'm going to have to give you 30 years of business in 20 minutes. So we're going to talk fast. I'm going to put my keys down. You can talk to me about those later. But what is the purpose of business? Just for the next couple of minutes, I want you to do, whilst you're still finishing breakfast, I want you to tell something good. Now, you've all had conversations this morning, but I want you to tell something good that's happening. Now, an affirmation could be a thank you. An affirmation could be something you've heard this morning that, wow, that's really interesting, that's really good. It's like James here is working with youth and he's doing stuff in human trafficking, or fighting human trafficking, which is a big passion of both my wife and I. It could be a thank you. It could be something that you notice about somebody, but you think, it's so obvious, I don't need to tell them. But sometimes it goes. Now, an affirmation, when you do that, when you give somebody an affirmation, don't use words like, I would like to, or I want to. Have you ever been to one of those awards or watched the award nights, and people come and say, I would like to thank. And they go on and do it, and then they pan across to them, and you see them looking at them going, what if they said the words, thank you for doing that, because what you did made such a difference. There's a huge difference between I would like to thank somebody and actually doing it. Right? So don't say I would like to, and don't say I want to. And a couple of other keys on that is things to remember. Make sure you look people in the eye. When you're speaking to somebody, because an affirmation you're saying directly to them, look them in the eye. That's with the exception of a couple of countries in Africa, because when you look them in the eye, it means you want to eat them, which isn't good. Be culturally sensitive. Make it about them, not about you. When you're talking to somebody and you're thanking them, then you start talking about you, you're just giving them flattery. Make it about them. Be honest. Don't affirm somebody for something they don't do. Alright? And talk directly to them, not about them. So just the next couple of minutes, very quickly at your table, you've heard some people do that, so I want you to either tell something good or give an affirmation. So for those of you, and let me just ask a quick question. For those of you who just received an affirmation,
sorry about that.
what did that feel like?
Thank you.
Felt good?
Amazing.
Amazing?
Positive.
Positive?
Yes.
Affirming? Affirming?
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah. What else? Okay. For those of you who gave an affirmation, what did that feel like? Felt good? Great? Sincere? Yeah?
Appreciative.
Appreciative? Okay. So let me ask a question. If giving an affirmation, you feel appreciative, good, sincere, and getting an affirmation is affirming, good, happy, joyful, why aren't we giving more affirmations? If you take nothing more out of today, learn to be affirming, learn to look for the good and the gold in other people, learn to pick out and say and speak to people, because people may never have been affirmed in their life. And I guarantee if you start doing that, you'll start changing people's lives around you. So I'm going to give you some homework, which is normally given at the end, but some homework. Make sure today you go and affirm 3 people. Find something good in 3 people and look it out for them. Okay? So what is the purpose of business? That's my book, which I'll talk about in a second. What is the purpose of business? Let me give you a bit of a background about me. At 14, I grew up in a small coastal town. My parents owned a hotel. I worked for the opposition hotel because they paid better than my parents. Very simply. I need to speak to you about your son, but that's okay. But at 14, I had no Christian background on either side of my family. I walked, there was a girl I was keen on, and she said, if you want to go out with me, you need to come to church. I thought, well, how hard can that be? I'm 14 years old, what's the worst that could happen? So I go along to this church, it's 1978, middle of the Jesus movement. I go into CRC church, happy, clappy, crazy, swing off chandeliers, loud music, and I'm thinking, I've just walked into a cult. I'm 14, I have no sphere of reference, nothing. And then I think, they're going to take me as a sex slave. Now, I didn't know if that was good or bad. I'm 14, but they were the thoughts that came to my head. I don't know how that happened, but then I walked into the room. I'm about 8 feet inside the room, and I hear this voice that says, you will build business that will change the world and bring many to me.
Oh, wow.
Oh. Now I'm looking going, what was that? This is my first experience of God. I get an audible voice to say that I will keep building businesses and change the world, which is a pretty daunting thing. So we went on, and at the hotel that I was working at, I learned to serve people. I learned to carry bags out of cars and take them to rooms. I learned to serve at tables. I learned to cook at tables. I learned to make coffee, serve wine. I was 14, who cares? Right, let's not go into that one. And it brought me into a great place of serving, of servanthood, and running my business from a servant attitude. Then in my business career, it's funny because I had some business consultants come talk to me about building an identity and building a brand. And what I found is that it's not what we do, but it's who we are as the brand that we need. And it was an aha moment. But I've been involved in hospitality in a variety of things, from hotels, restaurants, bars. We've had fish and chip shops, ice cream shops. We've had internationally award-winning restaurants. I've been involved in finance. I've been involved in copy development. I've had insurance companies. There's a bunch of enterprises, manufacturing. A large IT company that became #1 in its industry around the world. We then set up organisations that fought human trafficking. And just fighting human trafficking wasn't enough. Just making awareness of some of those ills that happened wasn't enough. So we actually had manufacturing plants in Cambodia. We've had restaurants that employed people out of brothels in Amsterdam. But it's not just sex trafficking, there's a whole bunch of other things. So we've done a bunch of different things around the world. So it's a crazy thing. And as said in the bio, so Jane and I have travelled to over 107 nations now. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. We've seen a variety of different things, and we've learned how our culture affects their culture and their culture affects ours, be it for good or evil. And it's really funny, but as a business guy, I can get access into countries, whereas as a pastor, I may not be able to. Countries will allow me as a businessman to go in. And when I talk to churches and pastors, I say, as a pastor, you get the people on 2 hours on a Sunday and maybe 2 hours during the week. As a business guy, I get them for 40 hours. Who has more influence? So wouldn't it be great to see the outpouring of God in every business? That miracles, signs, wonders happen in business. I don't have that much longer. Oh, I also wrote a book, which you'll get a copy of. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in that book. But really, what is the purpose of business? And I believe the purpose of business is ultimately here to prosper and provide for the welfare of all of society. So funny, the great thing that you talked about in Matthew 28 was the Great Commission. But in Matthew 25, it talks about the judgment of nations. So the Great Commission is to disciple nations, but they're going to be judged. And they're going to be judged based on how they care for the poorest of those in society and those that need. So we've got to tie the two things together. Why did you get in the business? I got in the business, really, because I wanted a nice house, I wanted a nice car, I wanted to be able to get on a plane and travel, preferably get on the plane and turn left. Think about that in a minute, right? I got in the business for those things, but I found that business needed to be beyond my personal selfish needs. It needed to be much bigger. I needed to think a whole lot bigger than what I did. But it's been said out there that the measure of a civilised society is the care it takes for its most vulnerable members. And having said that, a you remember Wall Street? Wall Street, the movie? There was this quote, it says this: "The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of better word, is good. Greed is right, greed works, greed clarifies, cuts through and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its form, greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge has marked the upward surge of mankind. And greed, you mark my words, will not only save Tesla paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA." Wrong. Greed is not good. I've seen greed all around the world. Human trafficking is a thing of greed. The thing with greed is it has a couple of nasty bedfellows. Greed has fear and corruption. They're all tied together. And it comes down to self-interest. And if I sum that up in one word, it's pride. It brings us falling down with that. And we need to change what we do, how we operate, because there is a better way. And that better way is simply caring, sharing, and prosperity for all. It means that we have to be beyond ourselves and working for the benefit of others to bring the gospel into those who need it. So, it's opposite to what most people talk about. It's a change in what people do. Now, let me talk about one of the things there that I love. It's competing versus completing. And when I wrote this and penned this from my book, my wife said to me this: there's one letter difference between competing and completing, and that's the letter L. If you love, you'll complete others. If you don't, you will compete. And I thought she should have written a book. But learning to complete others, the same with affirmation. Bring people up, let them stand on your shoulders. Value add to other people rather than saying, I'm going to bring you down. There is more than enough to go around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we were brought up to live in what we call a limited economy. The world's economy is limited. It says there's a piece of pie, and if you've taken a big piece of pie, it means I'm going to get nothing. Right? I may as well pack up and go home. But that's not a kingdom economy. A kingdom economy is that he's got a bigger bakehouse. He'll just make more pie.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to start thinking differently, thinking that there is more than enough to help those that will help. I'll give you a quick story of two florists for way to run. Florist A, I know you're going on camera, so I'm not going to walk, but I will do it this. Florist A is a tulip shop. Florist B is a rose shop. The tulip shop does really nice tulips. The rose shop does really nice roses. But I walk into the tulip shop and I say, I'd like to buy roses for my wife because she loves roses. And the guy in the tulip shop says, well, that's really good, but I haven't got them. But I'll get them for you for next Monday. So next Monday I go in and buy roses from you. Then somebody goes down to the rose shop and says, oh, did you know the tulip shop's now selling roses? So what does the rose shop do? He says, I'm going to sell tulips. So now the tulip shop is selling both roses and tulips, and the rose shop is selling both rose shops and tulips. Shop A says, well, I need more sales, so what am I going to do? I'm going to drop the price to get more sales. He starts building business. Shop B says, oh, he's dropped the price, I need to drop the price lower, so I get more business. Well, he's going to put on another sale, and he drops the price lower, and suddenly we get a race to the bottom because we're competing with each other. What if there's a better way? What if Shop A said, I walk in and say, look, I'd really like to buy roses. He says, look, that's fantastic. I don't supply roses, but the guy down the road, he has the best roses, the most fragrant blooms, the most stuff. How about I ring him and let him know you're on your way? Huh. What's going to happen when somebody walks into the rose shop and asks for tulips? He's going to help that person run their business. And we're spiralling up rather than spiralling down. It's a very quick example on how we can compete and conflict. But what have you got in your hand? Just to give you two quick stories as we're going to wrap up there. We were faced with a human trafficking situation in the Amazon region of Peru, where there was this community, and it's 4 hours downstream by boat, and the kids from that community were taken to Equinas to go to school. So they were taken up on a Sunday night and brought back on a Friday night. But they slept at the school on their own. and all sorts of things happened. We're in the Peruvian Amazon, so we said, how do we solve this? We got 50 thought leaders in a room together. We had sports people, we had politicians, we had business people, we had pastors, we had mums, we had dads, we had a wide variety of people. We put them in a room and said, here are the natural resources of this community, what can we do? And then I made this statement along with my partners, that whatever we decide today to do, we will fund. Anyway, so we came up after this meeting with a thing called REBEL, and REBEL stands for root extract, berry bark and leaves. And REBEL was this consumer drink made out of products that we found in the Amazon, in that area to them. REBEL started growing, and then we started making elixirs to another business. We then put protein drinks together, and REBEL has now become the #1 functional beverage in the United States. Right? Well, 2018 had a turnover of 15 million. 2022 it's 42 million. Now, as part of what we did with REBEL was 1% of gross sales went back to that village. Right, gross sales. So everything that goes through 1%. So that village now has its own school, has its own hospital, has its own church, has its own things, because we built a business that changed people's lives. Second story. You heard my background, what I did. I'm in Cambodia, where we had a manufacturing plant fighting human trafficking. We rescued girls and boys who were caught in the sex industry, and we were trained in the manufacturing plant. Whilst I was there, I had this dream. God says, and I'm looking at this and I'm not making much sense of it. So I've written the dream now. And then he says, I want you to buy 500 acres of land in this place, grow West African mahogany. You will get 4 times the crop in half the time, and you'll change the finances of the nation. No big deal, except for the fact that I don't know how to do forestry. I haven't got a clue. It wasn't in my repertoire. And I said to God, you know that I don't know how to do forestry, don't you? He said, yeah, but I do. Good, I'm glad one of us is. Right? We went on the journey. We bought land. The land we own is called 1,000 Hills. Now there's not that many hills in Cambodia, but we call it 1,000 Hills because God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. From that we built, this is our hoop houses for our propagation. But to propagate our plants, I needed to get plants, our cuttings. So we knew people in Northern Territory in Queensland that had mahogany trees. We went up and we selected out of all of their trees the straightest things. We took cuttings from those trees, propagated those cuttings into seedlings, and then I packed a bag and carried those seedlings to Cambodia. Some of you may laugh. Anyway, we did that. We started the plant, we put them in the ground, and so they became our cutting rows. So we started with 18 plants. 18 plants grew to 300. 300 grew to 3,000. 3,000 grew to 30,000. 30,000 grew to 2 million. Right? This is multiplication of God, of what He did from those plants. These are 2-year-olds. They're in the ground. Remember, God said we would get 4 times the harvest in half the time. We have other foresters from around the world come and have a look at this and go, this is impossible growth. This ain't not happening. I'm looking at it going, well, you're standing next to it, guys. Come on. You're standing next to it. We had the audacity to reach out and say, yeah, we believe what God said, what He can do. Now, to put it in perspective, an acre of land in Cambodia normally produces between $800 and $1,000 a year, whether it's rice, cassava, mango, or anything else. By doing this, in 4 years, that acre of land produces $160,000. Right? There's a big difference. Now, we've funded orphanages, we've funded schools, we've funded all sorts of things over the years, but what would it look like if that was done slightly differently? That we said, instead of $70,000 into an orphanage, we take $70,000 and plant out 10 hectares of land in forestry and build for the long term. And so we teach them how to grow, we teach them how to pray, we teach them how to walk those fields, and in 4 years, that 10 hectares of land is worth 1.7 million. they can buy their own schools. They can be empowered to do the things they need to do. You're turning things around through business to have a societal change. They can afford to live, they can afford, and you know what happens? When they have financial security, human trafficking decreases. And people have pride in what they do. So my question to you is, what do you have in your hand? What do you have in your hand that you can use to change people's lives? Thank you very much.